Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and apparently, yeah, Sony had dissolved Firewalk Studios, which is the developers behind Concord. The company is no more, is done. This is the end of a chapter for the studio, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So before we dive into it, just make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. Who didn't see this coming? And here it is. They tried to, I guess you say, cope, or they tried to convince everybody that, hey, no, we didn't make a mistake, or we're gonna just work things out, we're gonna fix it, and we're gonna rebrand it as a free to play. And people like me knew that this game was not coming back. There's no way, especially after this world record breaking start and then a discontinue of a game within a matter of almost 2 weeks. There was no way that this game is going to recover. But let's dive into this article from Insider Gaming. It says, breaking, Concord developer Firewalk Studios shut down by Sony. It says, according to this update, Bloomberg, Jason Schreier, Sony's closure of Firewalk Studios in Neon Koi will result in 210 people being let go in total. Firewalk sees 172 people lose their jobs, while Koi is another 38. So it says, Sony made an announcement, a public announcement shortly after the news broke from the official website. I quote, "We consistently evaluate our game portfolio and status of our projects to ensure we are meeting near and long-term business priorities." PlayStation Studios CEO Herman Hulst said, I quote, "As part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen the studio business, we had to make a difficult decision relating to two of our studios, Neon Koi and Firework Studios." You know what's so fucked up about all this? Is that a lot of these CEOs do not get punished at all for this. Because if anything, CEO Herman Hulst should have received some type of punishment for this. Because if I can be wrong, but isn't he responsible for the handling as well when it comes to Firewalk Studios? I know he has to have some responsibility in this. And here it is. He has the ability to still keep his job while firing everybody else, where he also took part in this disaster. That's the funny part about all of this. Because now that he has his job saved, there's nothing stopping him from fucking up future endeavors and future projects moving forward. Which means the studio haven't learned anything. Like, these CEOs need to be made examples of. So when a new CEO comes in, him or her can say, you know what? I need to crack down and need to manage these studios as efficiently as possible so I won't get the axe. And that's the crazy part about this. So it says, I quote, "After much thought, we have determined the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio," he said. "I want to thank all Firework for their craftsmanship, creative spirit, and dedication." No one wants to hear that shit when they're getting fired. No one wants to hear that. But as we said before, there was many people, especially these journalists and many of these personalities that's on social media, that was trying to blame gamers, you know, about the celebration of a closing studio. What about the developers? And I said it on my Twitter myself, and I said, look, that's all part of the game. That's how the industry works. You make a shitty product, you're gonna get shitty results in the end. And this is the way for the studio or for the industry to reset itself and clean itself out. And that's what's going on right now. There needs to be a total reset within the gaming industry itself in order for all this nonsense to be weeded out. Now, to continue, I know none of this is easy news to hear, particularly with colleagues and friends departing SIE. I said that. This is like, no one wants to hear this. Like, we appreciate your work and stuff like that while your job is saved. Both decisions were given serious thought, and ultimately, we feel they are the right ones to strengthen the organization. No, there was no serious thought at all. There was reports from Colin Moriarty himself, who had inside knowledge, stating that the game had cost him $400 million. $400 fucking million when it came to this piece of shit of a game. So there was no harsh, or there was no critical thinking or decision making on this part. They knew right then and there that, yo, we have to shave this off as much as possible. And on top of that, people had got their money refunded after purchasing this game. So this game itself, the studio made no money. Sony made no money off this game. Even after the refunds, no money was made. So $400 million, the biggest loss ever in gaming history. This is going to go into the gaming history books. The biggest L ever. So no, there was no critical, hard decision making at all. They knew right then and there that, yo, we got to cut this off. We have to chop it. So, to move on, Concord launched in late August to less than 1,000 players on Steam and roughly 25,000 copies sold. The game was shut down 2 weeks later with talk of a potential return as possible free-to-play shooter. That was not happening. That was all nothing but cope. Because, first of all, when you have a studio that not only talks down to its audience, but when you have created an environment, which Colin Moriarty had pretty much said, and many others had said within the space, had said that the studio itself had promoted toxic positivity. And this was my first time hearing about toxic positivity. I never even knew it was a thing, but it makes sense. It's when you have not only a studio, but when you have people who are constantly create a culture or an environment of just constant positivity about a product, about a person, or about anything, to the point where you can't criticize it. Even when there's flaws, you have to remain positive about it. So no one around the studio itself could not criticize Concord at all. It was all about being positive. And this is when it always also takes me back about a lot of these gaming journalists, where it says that all you guys talk about is the negative, and never talk about the positive. Let's talk about the positive and look at the positive to these games as being released and things that of that nature. But no, you have to focus. You have to point out, the downfall or the things that could actually fuck up these studios or fuck up these games. Because of toxic positivity, this game has fell apart. Which means you could not criticize the character designs, you could not criticize the narrative or about the game itself. You couldn't criticize none of that. And because of that, they couldn't stop what was destined to happen to their studio, which was the complete dissolve from Sony themselves and the critical reception that the game had received upon its announcement and upon its launch. And that's what happened to this studio. So it says ultimately that didn't happen and Sony has moved on. There was no mention by Sony if all the employees would be let go or moved to other areas within the company, which we did get the update that pretty much almost all of them had got let go. So yes, that is the tragic tale and the tragic story of this studio, Firewalk Studio and Koi Studios, when it comes to this game such as Concord. The thing is, this game was a recipe for disaster from the very beginning, because before Sony had came in from reports, the studio Firewalk had already sinked in about $200 million of investment into developing this game. This game was in development hell. This game was in development for a very, very long time. And then Sony came in and swept up this game. And the fact is that hurts the CEO of Sony Studios. The fact is that he's able to still keep his job is just mind-boggling to me. How did he not see this disaster from the start? How did he not see that this game was going to be a failure in the making? Especially after you see all the clues, especially see if all of the perfect examples of what we're seeing in the industry, from games like Dustborn, from games like Unknown 9, from games like Zao or Zoa, or however you pronounce that game. These are the games that we see perfect examples of that just, it was for a certain particular audience, and that audience didn't come to show support, and it failed. And then on top of that, you have consulting firms like Sweet Baby Inc. that's putting their stamp of approval on these games, and these games are bombing simply because Sweet Baby Inc. is involved in these games. So how did he not see this? How did Sony not see the writing on the wall when it comes to all this? And that also has a lot to do with business forecasting, projecting the forecast of where the current state, where the gaming industry is going to be in the next 4 to 5 years. Because if you don't know what I'm talking about, is that culture shifts and moves much faster than these games are developed. And what do I mean by that? These games take most of the time the minimum to 2 to 4 years, and maybe even 6 to 10 years to develop. So during the time of these developments, culture is constantly shifting. So this game took about, what, 5 years, maybe 6 years to develop? So them looking at Concord and looking at how this game was being developed, they were only looking at the current trend of what's been going on of that era and at that time, where a lot of this woke nonsense and a lot of what's been going on as far as the narratives are concerned. Now, culture has shifted so much, and people and gamers are speaking up. Gamers are speaking with their wallets, fighting back, exposing a lot of this stuff within the gaming industry itself. And now that this game comes out at a much later time where gamers aren't taking this nonsense. And now, since they didn't project into the future of the possible outcome that society may shift again, this is the results of it. The game had failed. The game has completely failed. So, all I can say is that expect more games like Concord to crash and burn. And I believe that we're stepping in to a shift within the industry and culture itself, moving in 2025, like I mentioned in my previous video. A lot of things are about to happen. I think that we're going to either experience a hard reset or we're going to experience a soft reboot within the industry itself. But that pretty much wraps up this video. If you enjoyed this video, definitely want to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about Concord, Firewalk Studio, and Sony's decision to pretty much chop the block of the studio? And do you think that Sony had learned their lessons from this? If not, definitely let me know. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe button for more gaming content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.